Deep inside a Stone Age cave, archaeologists found something strange in the dirt floor. A row of holes, evenly spaced, deliberately dug. They weren't for storage, they weren't for fire. When researchers worked out what they were for, it was almost funny because it's the most relatable thing a human being has ever done. The people living in that cave got tired of water dripping on their heads, so they dug those holes, stood up wooden posts, and built a little roof. Inside the cave, to keep the rain off. That's not a caveman. That's you, putting a bucket under a leak. Tens of thousands of years ago, somebody looked up at a dripping ceiling, got annoyed, and fixed it. And that one small detail cracks open a much bigger question, because for almost the entire span of human history, rain was not a minor annoyance you fix with a bucket. It was a force that could pin your whole family in place for days, wash away your food supply, and on rare occasions, erase entire worlds off the map. So when the sky opened up and it rained for days on end, what did they actually do? Here's the thing we forget. For you, a rainy week costs you almost nothing. You stay inside, the lights stay on, food arrives at your door, and your life continues exactly as planned. But strip all of that away. No walls that fully seal, no stored food beyond a few days, no way to call for help. Now, a storm that lasts 3 or 4 days isn't a mood, it's a siege. The rivers you cross to hunt are swollen and deadly. The tracks you follow are washed flat. The dry wood you need for fire is soaking, and everyone you know is crammed into one sheltered space together, with nowhere else to go. The astonishing part isn't that they survived this, it's how well they'd figured out how to. Because when you actually look at what the archaeology shows, these weren't people helplessly waiting for the sky to clear. They were prepared. Start with shelter. We picture our ancestors passively huddling in whatever cave they could find. But that leaky ceiling fix wasn't a one-off. Where there were no caves at all, the frozen, treeless plains of Ice Age Siberia, humans built houses out of the only large material available, mammoth bones. Great curved tusks propped up the roof. Skulls and thigh bones formed the walls. Several families could live inside, with small hearths keeping the space warm while the weather howled outside. Elsewhere, they built long huts framed with wooden posts and packed with branches and straw. These people chose their campsites deliberately, sheltered from the wind, near water but above the floodline. With high ground nearby they could retreat to. They were reading the landscape like a survival manual. And when the rain forced everyone inside, that indoor space became a workshop. At a 19,500-year-old camp called Ohalo II, the ground itself preserved the evidence. By studying the scatter of tiny stone flakes left behind, archaeologists map out separate zones where messy outdoor tasks happened in good weather and where people retreated to work under cover. One hut floor was worn smooth from constant use and marked by fire, a room that clearly doubled as a living space and a workplace. So what were their hands doing through those long gray hours? At a site in Schöningen, Germany, dating back an astonishing 300,000 years, microscopic wear on tiny stone tools revealed the answer. Maintenance. Endless, patient maintenance. Resharpening spear points, repairing wooden shafts, scraping hides, soft. The stuff you do when you're stuck inside and you might as well be productive. The storm didn't stop the work. It just changed which work got done. They were even dressed for it. In a Moroccan cave, archaeologists found the oldest known evidence of humans making clothing, a 120,000-year-old workshop, complete with specialized bone tools for turning animal skins into wearable hide. And those furs weren't just warm. A good hide is a triple threat. It blocks wind, holds heat, and sheds water. Long before waterproof jackets, our ancestors were wrapping themselves in the original one. But here's what almost nobody expects. To a skilled hunter, a downpour wasn't the worst time to go out. It was one of the best. Think about what rain does. Dry, hard ground barely holds a footprint. But soft, wet mud captures everything. Every claw, every pad, every toe, in perfect detail. To someone who reads tracks for a living, a fresh rain turns the entire landscape into a printed map of where every animal just went. It gets better. Animals can feel a storm coming. The drop in air pressure before rain sends them into a feeding frenzy, fattening up before the weather hits. So right when the sky turns, the prey comes out. And then the master stroke. The steady roar of falling rain drowns out the sound of human footsteps. The damp air smothers human scent. So while a modern person hides under an umbrella, an ancient hunter could walk straight into the storm, nearly invisible, nearly silent, closing in on animals that never heard them coming. The rain even rewrote the menu. Scientists studying the Hadza of Tanzania, one of the last groups on Earth still living largely by hunting and gathering, found that their whole diet flips with the seasons. When the rains come, they lean hard into plants, roots, and tubers, so much so that the change shows up in the chemistry of their own bodies. Rain didn't just fall on them, it reshaped what their survival looked like from the inside out. Of course, they couldn't explain the pressure systems or the science, so they did what humans always do with something powerful they can't control. They gave it meaning. Almost every ancient culture, independently, invented a god of rain and thunder. The Sumerians had one. The Norse had Thor. The Aztecs had Tlah. The Greeks had Zeus hurling lightning from the sky. Some peoples in Europe collected what they called thunderstones, objects they believed were fallen thunderbolts, kept as charms against lightning. They were actually ancient stone tools, dug up from the ground, the tools of people who'd come long before them. And in the Kalahari, the sand people danced for rain, women circling the fire, clapping and singing, men dancing around them as the rhythm built. Rain wasn't just weather to be endured, it was a presence to be spoken to. But sometimes the rain and the rising water it fed didn't stop. There was once a whole country where the North Sea is now. We call it Dogger Land, a sprawling landscape of rivers and forests that connected Britain directly to mainland Europe, and it was full of people. For thousands of years, families lived, hunted, and buried their dead there. And then, slowly, it drowned. As the last ice age released its grip, the seas rose and Dogger Land shrank, generation by generation, into scattered islands. Then, roughly 8,000 years ago, came the final blow, a massive undersea landslide off the coast of Norway. The Stor Egg slide sent a tsunami tearing across the North Sea, swallowing coastlines that were already barely holding on. A world that had been disappearing for centuries was, in the end, finished off in an afternoon. And here's the haunting part. Nearly every ancient culture, scattered across continents that never spoke to each other, tells the same kind of story, a great flood that drowned the world. We can't prove where those stories came from, but some researchers wonder whether catastrophes exactly like this one, real coastlines vanishing, real homes lost to the water, left a scar so deep it was passed down for thousands of years until it became myth. But you don't need a tsunami to test what people are made of. Sometimes an ordinary storm, days of rain, everyone trapped inside, food running thin, was enough. We know how those moments went because of one skeleton. Archaeologists call him the Old Man of La Chapelle. His bones tell a brutal story, crippling arthritis through his spine and hips, a hip that had broken and healed, and almost no teeth left in his head. He couldn't have hunted. In a storm, he couldn't have fended for himself at all. And yet, he lived to old age, which means someone kept him alive. Someone shared food he couldn't catch, maybe even softened it so he could eat without teeth. And it wasn't a fluke. Another Neanderthal, known as La Fey Ras E1, survived a serious, drawn-out illness in his lungs that would have left him helpless for a long time. Two different people, two different places, the same conclusion. When the rain locked the group inside and the food ran low, they didn't turn on their weakest. They kept the fire lit and the broth warm, and they carried them through. Today, when the sky turns gray, we scatter, each of us to our own sealed room, our own glowing screen, our own private warmth. We've made ourselves so comfortable that we can wait out any storm completely alone. And we call that progress. But something got traded away in the deal. When it rained for days in the ancient world, there was no scattering. There was nowhere to go but toward each other. So they sat close. They fixed their tools together, shared what food they had, kept the sick ones breathing, and told the stories around the fire that slowly, over thousands of storms, became human culture itself. We beat the weather, but we built a world where we can survive the storm without ever needing anyone else. We traded the crowded, unbreakable warmth of the fire for the quiet comfort of a weather app. And most of us never even noticed it was a trade.